What's going on, all you wild hound dogs? Your two favorite Elvis impersonators are back here. Just got back from a Las Vegas trip, and what better movie to watch after taking a little vacay in Sin City? And we're talking about the brand new film from Baz Luhrmann. Huge fan of his for the most part. And we're talking about the brand new film that just hit theaters, Elvis.
Elvis, thank you very much.
This time around, we have a young Elvis and more of a biopic about him, growing up, how he became the superstar that we all know. Played by Austin Butler. Not familiar with his work, but did a really, really great job in this film. He went to some really dark places. He knocked, the mannerisms, out of the park, singing these songs, sound exactly like Elvis. Did just a really great job in this movie. Really outstanding performance.
You could say he got me all shook up. I like how Baz Luhrmann, combined all the decades, 4 decades of Elvis's life. He only lived to be 42, sadly. But I liked how Austin Butler played him from a very young man all the way up until his death. I liked how they, covered his whole career, basically. Baz Luhrmann, he has a flair for the visuals, of course. The last time we saw a Baz Luhrmann movie up on the big screen was 2013's The Great Gatsby.
What do you mean, old sport?
Come on in, dude. Come on.
Come on, follow me in here.
Baz Luhrmann, he's known for his visual style and visual flair, and this is a perfect movie for him to direct. He gets to have this big biopic based on this larger-than-life character, Elvis, this, legendary musician that is loved the world over. And what a performance from Austin Butler. This movie was going to come down to who they cast as Elvis. Were they going to find anybody who could, not just do a crappy impression like, there's many impersonators out there, but somebody that could really inhabit the role, could actually move his hips like Elvis could do, could wear all those fancy costumes and, suits and really do the role justice. And Austin Butler really knocked it out of the park. I really enjoyed his performance too.
Yeah, this is a really compelling story, seeing a young Elvis growing up on how he finds gospel. He finds music to take him out of the situation, being a young poor kid down south, and how that really kickstarts his career, gets into music as he gets older. He starts making his relationships and recording music, and introduces a character of played by Tom Hanks. I'm talking about Colonel Tom Parker. That boy will be a superstar. All creepy in this movie, having some prosthetics on his face, but looking much like the OG, the character he's playing. It looked a lot like him. Did a great job. It's such a piece of shit. One of the worst managers ever. Took 50% of Elvis's money and pretty much 100% controlled him. You'll see throughout the film. He just cares about money, as from many bands and movie stars. Managers are always about the money, and it really shows that in this film. Sees their toxic relationship. Elvis looks up to Colonel as a father figure. Elvis's father is kind of distant and weird, especially after the mother dies.
Yeah, he puts way too much trust in Colonel Tom Parker. Colonel Tom Parker gets him into, really gains his trust by incorporating Elvis's family. Elvis is very close with his family. His dad was in prison for a long time, and he always had these wild dreams of breaking him out and bringing him back to the family, getting the family back together. And so when Elvis, starts getting big, he starts finding success out on the road, going with the Colonel Tom Parker on these, big shows at these county fairs and stuff, and really starts getting a following. And then when Colonel Tom Parker finds out that he can make all this money from Elvis, that's when things start going bad. He starts signing all these contracts, but he lures him in initially by offering him, Elvis, a chance to work along with his family and have his dad be his manager. So that's really where this poisonous relationship begins. He puts too much trust in Colonel Tom Parker, and basically Colonel Tom Parker sees Elvis as his meal ticket to gaining whatever he wants in this life. He's always been involved in selling things on the side, these snow globes and all these little side hustles. But really, when Elvis comes along and he sees his talent, he really puts all his stock into him. And once Elvis gets bigger, starts selling all the Elvis merchandise, and really just, takes everything away from Elvis and the legacy and everything. But before we get to that, let's talk about the performances musically by Elvis. We get some great Elvis songs sprinkled throughout. We get a little weird, like, side soundtrack that goes along with the movie that me and you were talking about. That was kind of weird. We didn't need to hear any rap songs throughout Elvis. But Baz being Baz, he throws in like some new modern songs, throws in some rappers and different kind of music that didn't really work well with it being an Elvis movie. You just want to hear Elvis's hits, but we do get to hear some Elvis hits, and it's not only performed by Austin Butler, but he also does the singing too, and which was quite impressive. We got to hear some classic Elvis tunes sang by Austin Butler.
If you close your eyes and just listen, it sounds exactly like Elvis. Like, he did a really great job. I guess Austin Butler put his body through hell and back, much like Elvis in the movie. After filming this, he had extreme stress to his body. So kudos to him for doing this method acting, going to a different place to bring us this great performance. A very unique take on Elvis from other performances we've seen in the past. You had John Carpenter's Elvis starring Kurt Russell, which I remember seeing as a kid. The scene with him shooting the TV. Bubba Hotep, played by Bruce Campbell, or a lot of different iterations of Elvis over the years, but this is a very unique taste and take on this film. Baz Luhrmann being the madman that he is, a unique stylistic approach per usual, and some odd musical choices as you're talking about. Even though we're rap dads and it's wiggity whack, rap and hip hop's cool. It just doesn't work when you're a period piece like this in the 1960s. Right. It takes you out of the film. And one of the minor complaints for me.
Sure. I think what Baz was going for there was, showing how much Elvis really, he was inspired by Beale Street and all the rhythm and blues players in the 50s and 60s. He became good friends with B.B. King. So he was very heavily influenced from that style, and he incorporated it into his whole persona with the dancing, the gyrating, which was funny because at the time, all the gyrating and the singing, that was just horrible to people. Like, it would be, they wouldn't even know what to do if they heard some of the, rap from like the late 90s NWA. It was like, they were going crazy over that, trying to shut down his shows because he was gyrating too much, and the girls were going nuts over it. They were trying to cancel Elvis, back in the day for that kind of stuff. So it's a history lesson too. I didn't know a lot about Elvis's past. I've never been a huge Elvis fan musically or anything. So this movie was something that I wanted to watch to get that and to appreciate all the performances. Austin Butler's, Tom Hanks, we don't get to see him in this kind of role too much. He's always kind of the good guy, the lead actor. Here he plays the side actor, this kind of, guy that manages Elvis and takes him for everything he's worth. So very interesting to see that. But overall, I really had a blast with the film. I came away from this movie, appreciating what Elvis did for, the 4 decades that he was around, like, and appreciating his work, not loving his songs necessarily, but you can see how he transformed music, and you can see why he's such a legendary figure in our society all these years later.
The opposite side of the spectrum here. I grew up with Elvis. My family always loved it, always listened to it. Saw all his movies, the Hawaiian movies, all shitty, green screen, in the background. He's on a surfboard, and it's completely obvious. Had a bunch of those, silly movies, and I just grew up with them. So I was really excited for this. I was really excited to see this, director taking on something like this, a unique spin on this character, and really diving into the past a lot of us didn't really know about, and how his life kind of went downhill, losing everything, drug addiction, career down the shitter, just hit rock bottom, and seeing Austin Butler portray this character as a young, healthy kid to a overweight, drug addict that eventually dies at 42. He really went to some different places in this film, and it really paid off. Had a great time with this. Very excited for this. Just being in Las Vegas, wanted to come back after seeing so many Elvis impersonators walking around out there. Coming back and seeing this movie and seeing what they did with it, and I was really impressed. Really blown away. Some minor complaints from my side of the music, and a little too long, about a half an hour too long. It's about 2.5 hours. Some stuff they could have cut out of it, but just some minor complaints. But everything else in this movie, love the costume design, production design, music, obviously. Acting, characters, stories really well done and written. And this is a movie I definitely probably end up buying and watching again. So that being said, I'm going to give Baz Luhrmann's brand new film, Elvis. Ooh. a 4 out of 5 Austin Butler hair pieces.
I really enjoyed this movie. This was a great theatrical experience for me. The larger than life persona of Elvis on the big screen finally, and who better to do it than Baz Luhrmann? He loves showing, he loves telling a story visually, and this was the perfect medium to show Elvis's life story on the screen. I really enjoyed it. It was a little long. It was about 30 minutes long. They relied a little too much on his final performances in Vegas, that those scenes kind of stretched out towards the end. That's where I would have cut it from. But I love seeing, from where he came from all the way up until, where he left this world and left his mark on the world. Really great performances all around. Really, Austin Butler's going to get an Oscar nom. I can feel it. He put everything into this role. The only thing I'd ever seen him in before, I remember seeing him in it, was Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, in that small role as Tex there. But
Right.
after this, I can see him having a long and successful career. Kudos to his performance. He even made me go and download some Elvis tunes and listen to even his recordings that he did for the soundtrack. So if you guys watch this movie and you want to listen to it, check out Spotify and download that. I had a great time with this movie overall. So I am going to give Baz Luhrmann's Elvis a 4 out of 5 honky tonk hair pieces. Oh.
Then we want to hear from you, wild hound dogs. What did you like about Elvis? What didn't you like about Elvis? What's your favorite Elvis song? Let us know in the comments below, and don't forget to click subscribe. Also, check out these wild country enthusiasts on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, on our website, Cinephellas.com, for the latest, greatest TV, movie news, and reviews.
What did you wild Elvis impersonators think of Baz Luhrmann's Elvis? Were you enthralled like these two wild rascals were? There's actually an Elvis impersonator that lives about a mile away from me that's like famous in my small town where I'm from. And I was kind of hoping that I'd see him at the theater. What better way to experience Elvis opening night than with like the town's famous Elvis impersonator. He drives around in a red Monte Carlo that has a big Elvis insignia on it. He's got the sideburns. He's older now, but he used to be known for like going to parties and stuff and putting on the jumpsuit. So that would have been cool. But yeah, I really enjoyed this movie, mate. And I'm glad you made it back from Vegas. What a great movie to watch right after coming back from the Sin City, where old Elvis last performed there, and gave us that great, final scene where he got to show his vocal abilities and left his mark, before he passed on and left us with Graceland.
That's right. Graceland's a beautiful place. If people out there watching this have never been there, I have family in Memphis, so I went there as a kid. It was really cool to check out his, crazy outfits, his massive house, and how over the top it was, and gaudy at the same time. But it's cool to check out for any fans out there. Also, stay tuned to our YouTube channel right here. Me and this guy are going to be talking about more films and TV shows. Hey, the summer's here. Things are popping. Movies, TV, something to talk about every week. I just checked out Spiderhead, the brand new Netflix film, Chris Hemsworth and Miles Teller. Me and this guy will be talking about that and more podcast interviews and reviews coming very soon.
That's right. Summer blockbuster season is upon us, and these boys are going to be busy this year. So please follow us. Thank you guys all for watching. And until the next Cinephellas movie review, I'm Uncle Henry.
And I'm King Logan. Until next time.